Hello, it's Silver, and this is the girl from Arkanya. At least I think that's how you say it, I'm not sure. This is an indie that's clearly inspired by classic Zelda titles, especially Minish Cap and the Four Swords games. You get a nice big world to explore, plenty of dungeons to delve, and various tools to collect to open up more of the world. This is one that really understands how that type of 2D world design works, and it's been a lot of fun to go through. You play as Marisa, the world's greatest treasure hunter. At least that's how she identifies herself to everyone. A large portion of the gameplay loop involves finding treasures of many kinds around the world and selling them for cash. There's a pretty solid economy in the game based around tools and consumables, along with various pouches for them that can hold a specific amount. So basically you'll be adventuring and finding loot to go sell to fund more adventuring. It's a satisfying loop, especially combined with the dungeons and bosses. There are plenty of games out there that are inspired by classic Zelda, but the level of passion these devs clearly have for the formula has translated into a game that feels like its own thing, but still has obvious influences in its design. Sometimes you play something that you know is spiritually related to a classic series, but has such a good understanding of that vibe that it's able to create a fresh experience while showing great competence of what it came from. I'm always impressed by games that have such classic roots, yet still manage to feel like they belong in the present with new ideas. Immediately upon starting the game, you'll be assaulted by very cute pixel art sprites for the characters. There's a surprising amount of detail, both in appearance and in animation for these sprites, especially the main character, who is carefree and adorable at all times. Once you go out into the titular city, you'll see plenty of other characters and the fact that they have great sprite detail as well. The merchant character you sell all your loot to, who suspiciously follows you around the world, has this jovial smile all the time, and various vendors look equal parts active and overwhelmed. I think the amount of character they've managed to stuff into the sprites looks great and adds a lot of charm to the world. The enemies are also adorable, kind of makes you feel bad about smacking them with a sword, but you'll find that there's a pretty good enemy variety, and each one has some great sprite work as well. They have easy-to-see attack animations, which is important in a top-down perspective like this, and something some games don't do as well, so it's nice to see. I also like that the palette swap style enemies have very obvious differences in how they look even at a glance, so you always know the threat level of what's on screen. Bosses look fantastic as well. They tend to be much larger than normal enemies, which means they use multi-segment sprites with plenty of detail. They are colorful and well animated and have visually cool and unique designs, as well as also having good telegraphs for all their attacks, which helps you know where to stand to dodge them. Environment art is also important in the genre. You want to feel like you're adventuring around interesting areas that have good variety to make each one feel different. In this case, it does a pretty great job of that. You'll go from the lush green starting area over to sapphire blue pirate coasts and intimidating mountain climbs. You got everything from emerald forests to spooky dark environments full of angry skeletons. I think one of the main goals of this genre is to make the player feel like their journey is epic and world-spanning. If you look at the inspirations like Zelda, those games definitely go for a feel like that. There's also enough detail in the environments to keep them interesting. The pixel art is made with a clear eye for small environmental bits that help each area feel unique. Even zones that are connected and look similar will have enough different details that you can easily tell them apart. Where the art really shines, though, is in the dungeons. From big ancient temples to open outdoor areas, the dungeons take the cake of being my favorite looking places. Each one has a strong color theming related to the element that dungeon houses. The solar dungeon is an orangey red, for instance. The water one is blue, and the wind towers are green, etc. This color is used in the brickwork of each dungeon and also in things like statues and accents in bigger rooms. I also like that there is an elemental symbol for each one that's used as decoration in important areas. The interiors of the dungeons are full of traps and puzzles, but everything will also have a unified visual style relating to that particular place. From the first time you see the big golden pyramid with cool ornamentation everywhere, and for the first dungeon, you'll be able to tell that a lot of work went into the visuals of these areas, and I think it makes them the coolest looking parts of the game. Musically, we've got a fair variety of different tracks, and they all seem geared towards being the sound for a heroic adventure. They just have that triumphant explorer vibe, you know? The music in towns is upbeat and busy, sounding like what you'd hear walking through an Age of Adventure town center. The music while exploring is fitting for the fact that you're in a place called Amazonia, having a sort of a jungle feel. Other areas in the game break from that jungle theming a bit and have more of a nautical vibe or sometimes a kind of whimsical storybook feel. It's nice that there are different tracks for most areas, considering the amount of exploration you're going to do. You'll hear them for a while, so they need to be able to meld into the background easily. The more actiony tracks are saved for places like caves and dungeons. These tracks have a kind of foreboding flavor to them, yet still manage to sound happy and triumphant somehow. The dark cave music has this slower, kind of mystical sound, and the dungeon delving tracks sound more Zelda-influenced than any other music. I like the sense of mystery that these tracks have, and the boss music that caps them off is the most fast-paced music you'll hear in the game. It overall sounds great as the soundtrack to a dungeon-crawling adventure, and does basically exactly what you want given the genre. I think the audiovisual presentation of a 2D adventure game like this is actually deceptively important. When people think back to games like, say, A Link to the Past, they probably remember their favorite boss and dungeon designs, as well as fragments of areas they always enjoyed going through. These things help to make up the identity of a game just as much as the mechanics do, and it's one place where indies can have an advantage, because to get that right feel, you don't need multi-million-dollar budgets creating photorealistic textures and stuff. You just need someone with a vision of how their game should look, and pixel art skills enough to realize their ideas. It takes skill to make sprites with personality, but it doesn't take $20 million in funding. In terms of gameplay, we've got a pretty classic formula here with some neat extra bits for good measure. If you've played a classic 2D Zelda game, then you'll immediately be right at home with this. The overall gameplay involves equal parts exploring, fighting, and puzzle solving, and it seems like they put a lot of effort into making sure you always have a new challenge to overcome. While exploring, you'll find lots of optional bits like caves that often lead to treasures for the museum or act as shortcuts between zones. You'll also notice while walking around that many areas are shown to you, but the way to actually reach them isn't immediately obvious. It's common to see the whole right half of the screen in an area is taken up by paths and entrances you don't know how to reach yet. This is a pretty smart way to encourage the player to explore as much as possible, tease them with shiny new stuff, and then make them figure out how to actually reach it with no real hints. Treasure hunting is a big part of the game, and you'll be finding loot all over the place. Many areas have chests, some hidden, that contain treasure, and also enemies tend to drop specific things as well. Even chopping grass can sometimes find you lower value treasure, and you can bet that chests and dungeons and deep in cave systems often have loads of high value stuff. You have a limited inventory to carry loot, but it's a pretty good size. When you look at your inventory, everything will have question marks for its value, so you won't instantly know how valuable something is when you pick it up. When you're loaded down with dubiously obtained artifacts, you can go to the merchant wearing blue in any town, and he'll buy everything from you for gold. When you go to him, he'll show you how much everything is worth, and after selling something to him, the next time you pick it up, you'll know the value of it. There are also some circumstances where you won't want to sell things, which is why you have a connected stash in safe zones so you can keep things you need. There are side quests that may ask you to bring them certain items for a reward, and you can also upgrade your sword multiple times, the ingots for which are sellable for a good amount, so you'll usually want to store those safely. NPCs are often found in out-of-the-way places and may have a quest for you. These are generally worth doing and can sometimes advance that NPC's quest line to a point where something new happens or they become a merchant. Combat is pretty simple. The A button swings your sword, and the B button uses some of your energy for a spin attack. If you get 3 hits on something, it'll charge up those diamond thingies and allow you to spend them for 1 spin attack for free. Basically, the combat revolves around knowing when to dodge an attack by running away, and then closing back in for several smacks to charge your special attack. Many of the tools you get can also be used in combat to add a little spice to it. The wave ribbon gives you a nice dash attack that is also the only way to attack on the water. The feather allows you to push enemies away for some breathing room, and the grapple can stun enemies. You have a system of consumables linked to your money. Your main healing items are cheese and beer, because Germany. Cheese heals for 1 heart and beer for 4. Your hearts are split into quarters for damage, but you'll rarely come across anything that only does a quarter of a heart. You have 2 slots on X and Y that you can put whatever in just by going to your inventory and pressing that button over what you want there. Often, you may want 1 healing item and 1 tool, although this does mean if you need to switch between a few tools, you'll have to pause to switch every time. You can only hold a small number of healing items max at first, but there's a tailor in town that can sell you increasingly expensive bags to expand what you can hold. Different merchants will also sell you healing items, so you'll want to stock up back at town to keep your stocks filled for dungeons. Except cheese. Lots of things can drop cheese, and green pots in dungeons will always drop one. Instead of learning songs to progress like in Zelda, in this you learn dances. At the end of each dungeon, you'll learn a new dance from a priestess, and this is what will open up new areas for you to explore, along with certain new tools you also get in them. You'll find elemental symbols on the ground in lots of places, often accompanied by a statue, but not always. These tell you to use that dance on them to do something. There are often areas with blocks and gates that block off new areas and are something you'll just come across frequently and have to remember where they are when you get the next dance. The dances aren't only for puzzle solving though. Using one gives you a buff that lasts until you do a different one. They give passive effects and change how your special attack works. The solar dance causes it to set enemies on fire. The water dance makes it conjure a quick shield you can block stuff with, and also makes you swim much faster. And the wind dance changes the special attack to a sort of a powerful forward stab that summons a whirlwind for extra hits. You'll also notice that you have a certain capybara friend with you. He can talk, like most capybaras, and is your stalwart companion throughout the journey. Kind of a Navi-like figure, I suppose. The cool thing is you can switch between the two whenever you want. Switching to the capybara gives you a new moveset, including a handy ranged magic attack. He also learns new skills when you pick up certain magical tools, like the ribbon and the feather, which expands his moveset. This is a cool feature that's fun to mess with, and you'll get the most out of the game when switching around between them often. The biggest draw of the game, in my opinion, though, is the dungeon crawling and puzzle solving. The dungeons can be pretty brutal in this game sometimes. They're often quite long and have lots of puzzles in them. They have multiple mini-bosses and then of course the final boss, which is usually a pretty lengthy fight. The dungeons follow the classic Zelda formula, often having mini chambers filled with enemies and keys to collect to open new areas, and then a new tool for you which opens up more areas, and then finally the big key to reach the end boss. You'll find that not only are there lots of puzzles, but they're really good ones. The puzzles are made specifically to make you switch characters a lot. None of them can be solved with just one person. They really get involved, and some of them stumped me for a few minutes. Their complexity ramps up quickly, and they expect a good amount from you. Each dungeon has its own puzzle types, so although they all require two characters, none of them repeat between dungeons, which I really like. You'll often have to do things like toggle switches to make certain paths appear, or stand on plates to make bridges show up. Some involve hitting switches, and others are more about using different tools and cappy abilities to cross large rooms with multiple platforms. I'd say the variety and complexity of puzzles in the game is my personal favorite element of it. They're just fun and satisfying to solve. As you collect tools and dances, you'll of course be able to explore more of the world, and the game is very good at leading you in the correct direction. You don't really have moments where you don't know how to work towards the next dungeon. Some of them aren't even in the classic temple design, like the water dungeon being entirely open air on some pirate islands. There are also plenty of mini dungeons and caves and things for you to optionally stumble across. They often have like a relic for the museum, which adds some cool lore and gives some extra cash. You also get a max health and max energy upgrade from major temple bosses, but can also find ghost capybaras around the place in hard to reach areas that can upgrade you further. You can even collect certain ascending materials to upgrade your sword and make it more powerful. Highly useful, but often a bit tricky to get what you need. This game is a lovely Zelda-like romp with plenty of fun things to find and a great art style for the world and characters. I had a really good time with it, and the dungeon designs were memorable enough to have me always excited for the next one. The only bug I ran across I'm actually not sure is a bug at all. One of the consumables you can get is rum. It says it heals 2 hearts and gives you a shield. It does, in fact, give you a shield and is extremely useful for bosses, but it doesn't heal you at all, so that might be a mistake. Otherwise, I found the game very polished and have no real complaints about anything major. The game will set you back $20, which seems to me to be a fair price considering the amount and quality of content, and the fact that it's super well polished and feels like it was made with a lot of love. I'll put the Steam page link down below so you can check it out if you'd like. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.